everyone, and welcome back to the Beyond the Home Study podcast. This is a podcast for parents, especially those who have children through or are exploring foster care and adoption. We're here to help you navigate the world beyond paperwork and placement. We are so thrilled to have two guests. This is our first episode with two guests together. So, Laura, I will let you introduce them to us.
Yeah, it's super exciting. You guys, we've been wanting to do like a couple, and our new friends, Jessica and Ryan, have volunteered. So we were super thrilled to have them. They are in Tennessee and they have a really great story. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear. They have three kiddos. They have a daughter that is adopted, and then they have twin boys that they adopted, which is also super fun for Abby because they've got that like twin parent thing going. So yeah, we're excited to hear from them, and I know that you guys are gonna learn a lot and just yeah, it'll be good.
Awesome. Well,
Abby, you wanna take it away?
yeah. So, Jessica and Ryan, why don't you just say hi to everyone and just kind of, give us a little bit of the lay of the land? Who's your crew? Who's in your family?
Well, I'm Jessica, obviously. We have three kids. We have Charlotte, who is 9, and we are newly navigating that transition from little girlhood into tweendom, I guess. So there are still times where we see that glimmer of just the sweet little girl, and then sometimes she's completely grown, and so that is unique and new, which is fun. We've gotten to do some new fun things with her, and then our twins are nearly 5 and on the precipice of kindergarten, and this mama's heart can barely handle it. So we're trying to soak up the last few months of preschool and just prepare them for the next big step, and and all of the craziness, enjoy it, and hang on to the memories we make along the way. So
And Ryan, you have a unique story too. I didn't mention this in the intro, but tell them about you.
I have a personal testimony in history with adoption. I am an adult adoptee, and so I was adopted from birth, and it was very different, right? I was born in 1989, and so there was no kind of open or semi open adoption, and so I now am blessed to have a years later a relationship with my birth mom. But so as a family, we just have adoption at all of the different levels. So we both have siblings who were adopted. We both have some, level of adoption as part of our stories. And then it's just kind of neat to see and view all that as a parent now as well of 3 adopted kids and really get to share kind of some of our own story with them and just help them navigate those things. So
That is so neat. I was just wondering, Ryan, if you could tell us a little bit about like what life was growing up for you. And like I don't think you knew your birth mom when you were much younger. So what did that like childhood into meeting her look like for you?
yeah, that's good. So, and that's a good point. I mean, again, it was just a very different adoption landscape, in the late 80s, early 90s. And so whereas it's something that's really kind of celebrated, and I think there's a lot of resources now, it was really kind of taboo even back then. And so it wasn't something that you advertised. It wasn't something again that was really open or celebrated. And so I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in the Pittsburgh area, and I was um my adoption was through Catholic Charities, and so I was adopted at birth. My adoptive parents had some kind of optional contact with my birth mom, and again at that time that was really kind of unique and radical because the norm was just that you had no contact, you didn't want to have contact, you didn't want to keep a relationship going. And so my mom especially really kind of did something that was pretty radical and just continuing to keep contact going with my birth mom. And so it wasn't something that, bloomed into kind of a full blown relationship overnight, but they just kind of started with contact and correspondence through the mail once a month. And that kind of turned into over the years, like phone contact with me and her, on my birthday. And then when I was, I guess, 14, I got the opportunity to finally meet her in person. But that was something, again, that was a relationship that was just kind of cultivated really by my adoptive mom and my birth mom, and just a lot of trust
Mhm.
over the years on both ends. And so in the midst of all of that, my adoptive parents, when I was 3, they actually separated and eventually got a divorce and then got remarried. And so all of that's going on in my immediate family. And I'm so kind of thick headed that I didn't realize how kind of abnormal all of that was. And so I joke with people that I had like the most normal kind of upbringing that a kid who's the product of adoption and then a divorce can't, because we just, even when my parents got a divorce, they lived a couple miles away from each other. My birth mom's family was in the area as well. And so just kind of kept up contact during that time and really had what I consider a really normal kind of upbringing, for a kid during that time. Just didn't know how different we were kind of until years later. And I credit my adopted mom with a lot of that, because she just made it uh, another thing, right? It wasn't our whole identity, but they didn't hide it from us, either. It was, hey, this is a part of your story. This is how God chose for you to come to us. And so it was really something that I looked at as special, but I didn't look at myself as really different from everybody around me. So when people ask me, hey, when did you find out you were adopted? I really can't tell them, because I always grew up just kind of knowing. And my adopted parents did a great job of just making that a part of the regular conversation.
Did you, ask to meet your biological mom, or did your mom kind of like, how did that come about?
So it was something that my adoptive mom kind of initiated. And I have an older sibling um, who we are not biologically related. So same adoptive parents, and her adoptive mom had passed, and so she never got the opportunity, the chance to meet her adoptive mom. And so I think for or her birth mom, excuse me. So I think for my adoptive mom, I was a little bit of a wake up call of, hey, you guys have had correspondence, you've had the phone conversations, but I think that added a little bit of a sense of urgency of, we don't want you to kind of live with regret, right? Of never having to gotten to have that moment. And so she kind of gave me a heads up, and I kind of knew that it was going to happen, but I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. And
Wow. Yeah, I think it's so unique, and it's so I think as a parent, it must be so helpful to know, okay, this is what I experienced, this is what I have gone through. So now you have these 3 kiddos who I'm sure every situation is different. How did you come to adoption in the first place? So you get married 13 years ago. How do you come to adoption, and how do you decide that that's how you will grow your family?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think everybody just assumes like, oh, you adopted because you couldn't biologically have children.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Home Study. If you've been enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could take a quick moment to leave a 5-star review and share this episode with a friend. These are the best ways to help more families find these conversations and join our community.
So we were at seminary, Abby, where we met you guys.
Yep.
And I had started having some health problems, some rheumatological health problems. And we had been married a couple years. We were living there, and we were going to a great church with lots of young families. And my sister, who was in East Tennessee, called me, and she had this friend who was not married and found herself pregnant. And we started having this conversation of, if she were looking for a couple to adopt her child, would we be willing? And my sister had kind of asked that question casually, or if we knew anybody. And I think that was the moment she didn't. She ended up keeping her baby, parenting. She and her now husband, they got married. The daughter's father got married. They're doing really, really well. But for us, it stirred the conversation. If we're willing to think about this in this situation, are we willing to, does that mean it's time for us to start having the conversation of having children? And so just with some counsel from doctors, but then also with the background of adoption in our family, I was adopted by a stepfather who we were part of a blended family. And so I had 3 stepbrothers. My sister is my half sister, same mom, and they married and put us together. And we grew up knowing that we were chosen. My dad had chosen to take us on along with my mom. And so we had this understanding of love was very much just a choice. And so we decided adoption was part of our plan. At that point, it just moved to plan A. So we started pursuing private adoption through Bethany Christian Services while we were living in Louisville. And what a road that is. what an experience. I mean, just all of the paperwork. And I remember being
Yeah.
behind the toilet in our tiny 1-bedroom apartment the night before our first home study meeting and like scrubbing behind the toilet. Like, you just never know what to expect with that. So that's really what led us to that private adoption for our daughter, who's our oldest.
I
So
remember
was it
being very concerned about making sure we had enough fire extinguishers in the apartment as well. There are all these things, all the people, gone through that home study process just tell you the craziest things that they had to do or that they didn't do or whatever.
That's hilarious, and I can relate. So did you guys not consider it before that moment? So, like, when you met, he's adopted, and then you get married, and like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, "Oh, surely you've had that conversation, like, before you even got married, like, oh, we're gonna adopt because that," but that wasn't the case? It wasn't until your friend
No, it
brought it up?
was. Adoption was definitely one of our like, oh, when it's time to grow a family, we will like this is one of the things we hope to pursue. But I think it was really just, oh, we've been married 2 years. Is it time to start having a conversation about having kids just in general? And if so, this just, where I was at health wise, this needs to be option A instead of just an option. So it
Mm,
wasn't a hard jump for us. I remember we hosted Thanksgiving. My mom and stepdad came up, and Ryan's mom came down, and we had little announcements printed up and put under the like table setting, and it said, surprise, we're adopting starting, whenever whatever the date was that year. And so anyway, it was fun for us. It wasn't hard to get there in our minds. You know what I mean? I know a lot of women struggle with, they're not able to carry a baby to term, and so adoption isn't their first choice. I'm really grateful that's not been a struggle for me or for us. It was a pretty easy jump.
Well, so just to kind of tag on to that, that is one of the reasons I don't know a whole lot of your story that we're going to get into still. But I remember, I think you were fundraising maybe for like a race or something that you were planning to do to help to fundraise for your daughter for your adoption. And on your little card, you had written, adoption has always been plan A. And that was the first time that I had ever heard that because in my mind, and at that time, I don't even think Josh and I were even really considering starting a family at that point. Like maybe we were getting close, but we weren't really even considering it. And so I remember thinking, wow, I didn't even think that that could be a family's first option. Like it really
Mm,
was this kind of light bulb moment for me. And I just thought it was so beautiful that this could be, and I actually don't even know if I knew that you were adopted, Ryan. So it all kind of like is coming together for me as we're having this conversation. But yeah, I just think like for anyone else who's listening out there, if adoption is your plan A, it's your plan A. Like that, I think that's really beautiful and really amazing. And foster care, private adoption, whatever that might look like. It's just really unique. And so I just wanted to make sure that I had shared that with you all.
thank you. We appreciate it.
And it was cool because kind of individually for both of us, right? Like we both had our personal experiences and testimonies with it. And so it was a priority and it was important to both of us. And we had those conversations kind of organically, but like I was 22 when we got married. And so you guys know, like you have your 5-year and your 10-year plan, right? When you first get
right.
married. And so we were going to go to seminary and really wanted to just like build a strong relationship and foundation, the two of us. And so again, I think kind of thought, yeah, it would probably be in the 5 and 10-year range. And it wound up being closer to 3 to 4 years after marriage that we just knew that we were ready. And God had kind of brought us both to that point, that, individually, but kind of knit our hearts together collectively for that. And so we started having more intentional conversations about this being the time and what that was going to look like and what type of adoption too, right? Because there are a bunch, and we have several different, processes that our kids have gone through, but we really felt like domestic infant adoption, which is what I was what he was calling us to, for the adoption of our first child. And so he paved the way every step of the way, like you were talking about. People like you, other friends that we had, right? Because as a young couple in seminary, we didn't have an extra 25 or 30,000 sitting around, and God just made a way with friends of ours who didn't have a lot of money either, but they could give $10 or $15 to a t-shirt fundraiser, right? And that kind of stuff adds up. And so we just saw God open every door along the way, and it was just so clear and so kind of undeniable that was the time and that was the path he was leading us down.
So walk us through that path a little bit more. You mentioned the home study and feeling just like thrown into it. What was kind of going through your mind other than do I have enough fire extinguishers?
Yeah. I mean, I think just, the basics. I remember telling somebody if I've ever had a bad thought, they're going to uncover it. Like it's so exhaustive, right? Like so many questions and so, oh goodness, what's the word that I'm looking for? I feel like it's so in depth and you feel so exposed, in some ways, right?
Thorough.
So,
Very
so
thorough. Yeah.
thorough. I remember we had some friends who were pregnant about the time we were going through the home study process for Charlie Beth. And I just thought, like, you did not have to sit down and answer these types of questions before you got pregnant. I just want you to
Right.
know, like, you have not probably considered how you're going to parent when this child gets here. Those are things that we have to at least be able to articulate. And so it was a great process. We had some really, really great workers that we met both through the Kentucky office, and then we relocated midway through the process back to East Tennessee and moved to the office there. And there were just some incredible people that helped us along the way. Other folks that had gone before us and adopted or were in the process as an encouragement. So we did everything very by the book. Her adoption was as about as smooth as could have been. Lots of fundraising, lots of paperwork at the beginning, all of the background checks and fingerprinting and all of the things that you do. And then we prepared a book, and Bethany Christian Services showed it. And we got a phone call that we had been chosen. And from that phone call to having a newborn in our arms was like 48 hours. It was crazy. It was
Wow.
insane. We were actually back in Louisville. Ryan was taking a class on campus at the time. It's the first time in my life I've ever unpacked a suitcase in a hotel room because we were supposed to be there the whole week. And we get a phone call at lunch on Monday that our profile had been chosen by a biological mom and dad. And they wanted to meet with us. So we were going to be back by the end of the week, and we had planned to meet them. And we get a phone call 3 hours later that said, you need to get back to Knoxville now. So we drove through the night. We're at the hospital the next day to meet her. And Wednesday morning, that was Tuesday, we met her. Wednesday morning, the nurse practitioner that was on rotation that day came in and said, well, you're going home with a baby. We're like, holy moly. Okay. So
Whoa.
it was a whirlwind when it finally happened. And it was it was just a blast. We had no idea what to expect. We spent the first, 3-4 hours back at our house with her, holding her because we didn't have a bassinet to put her in. So we had friends, like the house had this revolving door of people just dropping off stuff like food and diapers and wipes, bottles, everything we could have needed. We brought her home in a borrowed car seat. It was insane. And it was so joyful and so incredible.
And also tiring. Right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
I mean, traditional birth, right? You have like months to prepare, and we knew it could happen quickly, right? But even I think the call that we got was like, hey, there have been some developments, and the developments were like, she's here, right? Like she's been born and she's come days earlier. And so we'd held off traveling for like months before that, right? And they were like, well, I guess a baby's not going to come. And literally almost the second that we get to Louisville, right, we get that call. And so there's no way, like the whole it takes a village thing becomes very cliche, right? Especially surrounding adoption, but like it's it's a cliche, it's a stereotype for a reason. Like there is no way that we could have been ready and been present and done the things just that we needed to do as parents and be there for her if we hadn't had people bringing groceries, if we hadn't had people bringing stuff that we didn't have, if we hadn't had people even just like donating for how expensive those first couple of months are, right? And like all of the like until you've gone through it, you cannot comprehend someone using that many diapers in such a small period of time. Right? Like there's just nothing that
But then you have
prepares you for that.
twins and you
Yeah, then you
realize
have twins. Yeah, I have stretched the limit of the back of my car with how many diaper boxes I can fit into it when they're on sale because you know you're gonna go through them.
Oh, Abby, I remember, sorry, this might need to be cut out, but I remember when our boys were 2, 3 months old and I'm opening and like exhausted stupor. They were very premature. And so they were eating a lot, not sleeping a ton. Nobody was sleeping much at all. And I remember standing in their room, opening a pack of diapers and I'm thinking, didn't I do this yesterday?
Oh
And I
my
count it
gosh.
up and yeah, no, I did this yesterday.
Yeah,
It was wild.
it is really wild. It is really wild. And so then fast forward a few years, do you decide to adopt again? Does that come about a different way? Walk us through the adoption of your twins.
Yeah, so we had relocated from Middle Tennessee or East Tennessee to Middle Tennessee. Ryan was on staff at a church here when we moved here in 2019, and Charlie Beth was 2, almost 3 when we moved here, and we started having conversations. Man, we have so much fun being her parents. Like, what would it look like to grow our family? And we had conversations with her, and she was thrilled about it. And so we started the process of an international adoption at the end of 2019. And early 2020, we got an email from that agency that they were shutting down their international program days before we were about to pay a very large sum of money to be in that international program. And so they were revamping how they did international adoption, and we were not in the program, so we were not going to go any further. So kind of pivoted. That was probably, mid-February of 2020. So we went to a different agency with the same kind of international program. And then we all know what happened in 2020, COVID hit. We were in the China program. And so of all the programs that were shut down fastest, China was it. And so we sort of looked at each other and we were like, we know that we want to grow our family. Lord, it's not happening it can't happen this way. It hasn't happened this biological way yet. So what do we do from here? And
Next, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
what's next? What's next? So later in that year, we were contacted by a family friend who was pregnant and considering adoption. And she wanted to just kind of talk to us about our process and what that looks like on the adoptive family side. And through conversations with her, she just asked us out of the blue, would you all adopt my child? And so we prayed about it and talked about it and agreed to pursue that adoption with her. We were doing a private adoption. She had been in contact with an agency and was receiving counseling. And so we were working with them and talking with her. And the baby was born in September after several months of communication and just kind of getting to know each other better and what will the future look like kind of thing. And we were, the child was a different ethnicity. And so we were doing some research and talking, gathering good resources on just how to navigate the world as, Caucasian parents to an ethnic minority child. And so he was born in September. And as we were getting ready of 2020, and as we were getting ready to leave the hospital, she changed her mind and decided to parent. And it was probably one of the most difficult things we have ever walked through. Ryan had left. We were in Chattanooga. He had left to go get Charlie from my parents in Knoxville and was bringing her back to meet her new baby brother. And so I was at the hospital by myself, and the caseworker came in, and I could just tell. I knew, and I had kind of seen things kind of unraveling the night before, and I just really kind of rawly just emotionally prayed, Lord, please don't walk us, please don't ask us to walk this road. I don't know how we will navigate this. I just don't know. And how will we explain that to Charlie, who was thrilled to be a big sister? She had told people for months she was getting a baby brother. And she was so excited to be a baby sister or a big sister. I just remember begging the Lord, please don't ask us to do that. And so everything kind of came apart. He was there maybe 20 minutes later, and of course I'm inconsolable, just trying to communicate and all of that. And so we took a few weeks, took an impromptu family beach trip, and really just kind of let ourselves feel all of the grief and try to process through what that looks like. We had been there for his birth. We held him minutes after he was born. And he is this precious baby. And so it was hard. It was really hard. So anything
I mean, kept the name that we
Mhm.
decided on for him, right? And so, and again,
Yeah.
this was, this is a kind of an extended family member, right? I mean, that, the mom who decides to keep him. And so there was a relationship with them and their family. They were, kind of family friends of her extended family. And so I think it hurt even like more keenly in some ways, I think, because there was a feeling of safety and security and we already know them. Right. And when we went through the domestic infant process, and it's really kind of blind, and you don't know the person, they could change their mind at any minute. You're almost kind of more guarded and I think more
Mm.
prepared for that in some ways. And so it really did. I mean, we really didn't start, I think, kind of seeing the signs that maybe she was changing her mind until he came, really, probably. And so I remember I'm bringing Charlie, like Jess said, to our oldest to the hospital, and she's got the world's best big sister t-shirt on. I mean, all of that, right? It was like that. It was that real. It was that we were that all in, and it was that close to happening.
Mm.
And so we know that God is good. We knew that then, but we were just really, I think, honest with him and just saying, hey, we don't understand why, like we know that you're good. We just don't understand what's next, what you want us to do. And so do you want to kind of share about the boys process and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
that came about? Yeah.
So that was September of 2020. Later in the year, I was at Sunday night Bible study. Ryan was a youth pastor at the time. And so I was at church late on a Sunday with him. And I get a message from a friend that I had known through some other avenues, but she was in the adoption foster care world. And she had kind of tracked with our story, knew that we had had a failed adoption placement, knew that we had raised funds for it. Basically, we were just sitting on go. We were ready whenever the Lord was ready. And so she messaged me and she said, have you all ever considered twins? Would you be open to twins? And our philosophy up to that point was we will say yes until the Lord clearly says no. And so I messaged her back and I said, we are absolutely open to twins. What's the situation look like? And it was pretty unconventional. She had a friend of a friend that also knew us, who had a friend at church who was grandmother to these twin boys that had just been born. They were in the NICU and they had some pretty significant exposures. There was a pretty well established history within the system with their birth mom, with some other children who had been removed from custody. And so Viomom was not in a place where she could parent. And so grandmother was called, and grandmother was not able to care for. She was newly retired and was already caring for one of the other children, and just didn't feel like she could take on twin preemie, newborns and any level of need that they might have. And so, kind of as these things happen, friend of a friend of a friend calls, and we said, well, we're home study approved, and we've never done DCS paperwork, we've never done background checks, but we're happy to do it. So we got in touch with their caseworker, and for the next couple of weeks, she had some due diligence to do just in contacting family. The boys were born on December 2nd, 2020. So we were coming into Christmas, and they were in the NICU in East Tennessee and needed to be in NICU. So she said, let me do what I need to do, and then I'll be in touch with you. So for a couple weeks, we just sort of went back and forth. What's going to happen? Will we have custody? Will we ever meet these guys? And we just prayed for them. We just, somebody needed to be advocating on their behalf. Somebody needed to be praying for them and thinking of them. And we started to have a conversation with our daughter again, and kind of, just not quite sure how she was going to handle it. She processed probably better than we did the failed adoption placement, but um, Ryan said to her one night over dinner, we've found out that we've been given custody, we've been given guardianship over these boys, and she said, he said, what do you think if there are a couple of babies that need a place to live? We're not sure how long it'll be. There was no guarantee. Mom was not talking adoption. She just didn't want them to go into the system. And so he said, what would you think about that? And she looked around and she said, well, we've got plenty of room here. And Ryan said, what do you think if it were two babies and not just one? And she said, well, I've been asking God for two babies. So
Oh.
most normal thing to her that, of course, she had been asking God for two babies. Like, why would we not have two babies?
Wow.
So that was sort of the beginning of a very long process with them. Biomom had some personal struggles that she had to really address and work through. And so the boys were put into our custody. They discharged the hospital to us. They were born at 3 pounds and 4 pounds. They were itty bitty. And so they discharged the hospital to us at a month old. And we made the quick trip to Middle Tennessee. I called Ryan. They had 3 hours between feedings. I said, listen, I'm coming in hot. It's going to be feeding time. I need you to meet me in the driveway. So he did. And it's been kind of a whirlwind ever since.
She's like, and we're still coming in hot every day.
It's true.
It's and it was probably a 3-year process,
Yeah.
right? Of having guardianship of them, to then like legally getting to adopt them. But we look back all the time and we just didn't understand with the failed adoption placement. We knew, again, we knew the Lord had a plan. We know he's good. We've seen that in our lives plenty of times, but we just didn't know where that was going to go. And we look back on it now and we realize, because that call about the twins came in just a few months after the failed adoption placement. And so the reality is we would not have been able to say yes to the twins if we had Xavier, right? The failed placement. And so just the goodness of that not being the right time, and trusting him in that, and seeing that, yeah, he's allowed one to not be a part of our family, but there are now two who are, right. People say a lot that his timing is good and his timing is perfect. And we just, man, it didn't happen quickly from our vantage point, but we just saw that over and over in that process. We can look back, and I think there's not a day that I've not been grateful for him knowing, even when we didn't. And so you can just see kind of his good timing all over that process, right? Even as there's so many times going through it that we just didn't understand, right? Why we'd be asked to kind of walk that road.
Yeah.
And so,
I think that's always so interesting when it comes to trials and suffering and that big why piece. And we don't always get the answer of like the redemption later. Like we don't always see that. But when we do, it's so beautiful. Do you guys have contact with Xavier? I know you said it was like almost like an extended family member. Do you at least like do you see him, or just like maybe on Facebook, or like what's that relationship like?
We've not gotten to have contact with him. We have had contact with Biomom and her mom, so biological grandma, through the last few years. So he would be 5 as of last month, which is crazy. But it's just one of those situations where hopefully one day we can just meet and talk and see him. I think just on both sides of it, it is just hard and it's awkward to navigate. And I say that as somebody who navigates awkward conversations with bio parents regularly. So we have an open adoption with the boy's biological mom as well as Charlie Beth's biological parents. And so it's a desire of our heart, I think, just to maybe one day get to, if not be a part of his life, to at least know how he's doing.
Well, and we should say too, mom has reached out
Mm.
a couple of times since and invited us to birthday parties or kind of, again, not, we haven't gotten as many pictures or videos or those things, but we've gotten updates from time to time. And I think that's really, it's kind of brave on
Mhm.
her part, right? To like know or assume, hey, they probably don't want to hear from or talk to me, and to still like
Mhm.
express the desire to know on some level, understanding how hard that was for us, but still wanting to keep that communication open, right? And so like in that process, in the process with the boy's birth mom, and even when we let a lot of friends and family know that we were starting another adoption process, right? Because people love you and they're concerned about you and they're concerned about you getting hurt. Like there's just a lot of questions of like, well, what if it doesn't work out, right? Or what if it ends up the same way as last time? And we both just really felt at peace about, we feel like we have been told to provide a loving home with space, right? With stability for as long as we are called to, whether that's a month, whether that's a year, right? Whether that's several years or forever. That's a calm, that's a peace, that's a stability that that child is probably not going to have in their life um, otherwise. And so we just really, I think, kept our hearts pretty open throughout the hurt and in the process. And I had a family friend who said that to me and said, hey, you guys have been so open hearted through all of it. You've not been jaded. You've not let the potential for her to stop you from doing this. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way. But I think trusting God and all of that, the faith that we have being such a big part of our lives, but also my own adoption story and testimony, and seeing all the ways that God has worked in my life, right, through that, and how grateful I am every day for the life I have, and knowing that that wouldn't be possible if someone hadn't said yes, um, has, I think, made it a little bit easier to trust that, and to say yes on this end. So,
I love that. That's good. So, what does the future of your family look like? Do you have plans to pursue adoption again? Do you feel like, okay, we've got our twins, plenty to handle? What is the what does the forecast look like for you all?
Oh man, I think we both would love one or two more. I know that sounds insane. Most people, when I say that, most people are like, "You guys really are crazy, aren't you?" I don't know. I think every time our family has grown, it has just multiplied the joy. And we want to, I think selfishly, I want to get to see our boys be big brothers, because they have this capacity for love, just like our oldest is like the born big sister. And so we hope to have one or two more. We're not sure if that'll be through adoption, through the foster care system, biologically. I mean, who knows? Yeah, we hope to have a few more little McMichaels running around.
An embryo adoption, and you try for the international
what do they call
again.
it in
Let's just get
baseball?
the
The cycle? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're going to try to hit from every base. Yeah.
one of each. That's
No,
right.
what's funny about that though is really like four, when you already have three, four doesn't seem that intimidating, because you're like, well, we already have the toys, we already have the clothes, we're
heard that.
already not great, right? So
We
like
are.
Right.
You already have
we
I've
already have
heard
the
once you're
borderline homeschool
outnumbered,
tradition. Yeah,
that,
yeah.
like, once you're outnumbered, you're like, "Well, I'm outnumbered, so what's another one?"
It's exact. We're in zone coverage and destined to be for a long time anyway, right?
It's
And
true.
so,
It's true.
but it's funny because I think I always thought that like being ready to adopt again, that it would be kind of a gradual like process and gradual readiness of like, we have a date and we have a plan and we have a time where we're ready. And with the twins, after, or just another adoption after our first, it was like, it was not that way at all. It was like, no, 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 yes. Right. Like just one day we both just kind of looked at each other and it was like, I think we're ready again. And it's not that we're not intentional about having those conversations. Um, but again, I just think we probably 6 months ago started having the conversation of, hey, if we can handle twins, right? What is one more or another set, right? Like there's nothing that's going to break us or probably surprise us at this point. And so and getting to see, I agree, getting to see our 9-year-old be such a great big sister to her brothers, right? And just the way that she's really kind of been wired to be that way. Like everything that has happened in our family, even our adopted kids fitting in so perfectly, down to having our sense of humor and all of that. We know that the next ones would be the same way. Um, and so I think we're just kind of holding all that open handedly, really. And we've done that in the past. We've just been really blessed by it. So
So sweet. Well, if that
Yeah,
happens, we'll
that's
have you come back and we'll do a part 2 and you can share your other stories with us.
yeah. Is there anything you guys would like to just make sure that you share to our listeners? Like maybe just a takeaway that you have through all this process, like maybe the failed adoption or maybe just the whole thing in general that you're like, hey, I want someone who's listening to this podcast to know blank.
I think I'd love to just share, and I try to anytime I have this conversation. There are lots of things in the adoption process, whatever way it comes to you. There are a lot of things that you can be afraid about. There are a lot of things that you can be scared might happen to you, and they might. I remember with our daughter being given the option to send her to interim care because it was going to be a few weeks before her biological parents had signed their rights away. And I remember thinking, oh, is that the right decision or is it not? Should we just bring her home? Do I protect myself or, what do I do? I think you can worry to death that this is going to happen or not happen. And I think for us, we just kind of had to decide every step of the way again and again and again, especially after the failed adoption placement, that we were okay. We had each other. We know the Lord, like we can make it. But for however long a child might need us, we can also step into that space for them. We can love them. We can celebrate them. We can care for them, whether they're our daughter or son for a day or a year or their entire life or, the rest of our lives. And so I think I would just encourage people that it can be scary, but it is so worth it. It is so very worth it. Every hardship, every piece of paperwork, every fingerprinting or background check you have to go through, the awkward conversations with biological parents, the ordered visits, all of it is so worth it. If that's the path that you're being led down, it is worth it. It's scary, but it's worth it.
I don't even remember when exactly my parents started talking to me about adoption. I just know that they did. And I know that that was probably really scary for them. And especially then, there weren't resources and there wasn't a playbook, but they did it anyway. And so my encouragement and my advice to people is, yeah, research it and know your kids and take those things into account, but just start, right? I mean, just start the conversation. And so my encouragement would be for all of us, especially if you are like a planned personality, man, you want to know all the details going in, you want to have it all mapped out and planned out. And even our adoption processes that have been more or were supposed to be more by the book, like we've been talking about, right? There's still curveballs. There's still things that are going to be outside of your control. There's still things that come up that just kind of throw you for a loop. And so, man, I think your commitment to loving that child, your commitment to being a loving, warm, welcoming home that is going to care for them, right? Like those are the most important things. Don't worry or fixate so much on every part of the process looking the way you thought it was going to in your minds or being really, really pretty. I think the most important thing is that you be present and that your kids know that you care about them, and that you model for them. Hey, this is, we're going to talk about this, or we're going to engage your adoption story. We're going to be intentional about knowing that this is how you became part of our family, but also that this does not define you. Um, and there's not always a playbook for that. There's not always a um, right way to do that. Like us talking about my personal testimony and story, right? It's really unique, and so there's nobody else I
Mhm.
know who has navigated this exact situation. And so a lot of me counseling our kids through those things have not been planned. It's just been spur of the moment conversations. It's just been them asking us really good questions that we could have never thought of on our own. And just being open to talking with them about some of those things, even if they're personally kind of hard or kind of vulnerable or kind of scary, like some of the questions about their birth parents can be. Just be committed to walking that road and navigating that with them.
Yeah, that's that's really great, you guys. I think that yeah, I think our listeners are gonna be really encouraged by what you guys are saying and your story in general. Um, so we are just thrilled to have you guys here. I just like my mind keeps going about like, wow, yeah, that and that. Cause like you have so many facets to your story. But we just want to thank you guys for coming on today and sharing your story with us. And if there's anything that we've said today that have made you guys laugh, cry, or feel seen, please share this episode with a friend. And thank you again, Jessica and Ryan, for being with us today. All right. Bye guys. We'll see you next week.